So the Galaxy Buds 3s released last year, and with the Galaxy Buds 4s just around the corner, the big question is, are the Galaxy Buds 3s still worth it in 2025, or should you hold off and wait for the Galaxy Buds 4s? I've been working out in these, using them as daily drivers and even trying to sleep in them, but the big question for me is, can these replace my daily drivers of the past 3 years, the MW08s? Or am I going to be pleasantly surprised? So I actually picked up the Galaxy Buds 3s free with my S25 Ultra. Usually I'm the kind of guy that goes for the biggest, best everything, so naturally I would have gravitated towards the Pros if I had the choice. But I have to say the Galaxy Buds 3s have been a bit of an enlightening experience for me, because I've realized that you don't need to go for the biggest, best everything to have a really good experience with something, despite a bit of an underwhelming unboxing experience and first impressions. So let's quickly run through my unboxing of the Galaxy Buds 3s, and yeah, as I said, it's a bit underwhelming. Packaging is functional, but nothing here screams premium or generates any real excitement. And again, I'm comparing these to the experience I've had with my MW08s over the past 3 or 4 years. Anyway, inside you'll get your Galaxy Buds 3s in their charging case, a USB-C cable, and the usual manual. No fancy pouch for the case, which, whilst not a deal breaker, is definitely something a few other manufacturers are including these days, and it's definitely a nice to have, especially considering we don't tend to get chargers included with our tech these days. Anyway, the earbuds themselves are incredibly light, almost suspiciously light, which initially made them feel a tad bit on the cheap side of things. Design-wise, they've definitely gone for a distinctive look here. It's got this sort of sci-fi, almost gamer-esque vibe going on. It's not going to appeal to everyone, but I don't particularly mind it. It does feel like Samsung have perhaps tried a little bit too hard to differentiate them from the AirPods, for example, point we will be visiting later on in the review. Anyway, one of the first things you'll notice with the Galaxy Buds 3s is that Samsung have opted to go for an AirPods style of earbud, so you do not have all of those rubber tips. This could be a massive plus for some people, and for people like me, this is a bit of a downside. So these types of earphones, they sit directly in your ear canal. This is always a point of contention when comparing different earbuds on the market. Are rubber tips better than this style? Personally, after years of using earbuds with swappable rubber tips, I still find them superior for achieving a secure, uncomfortable fit, which truly seals to your ear. And this opinion was reinforced when I tried running with the Galaxy Buds 3s. The other thing you get with rubber ear tips, of course, is a little bit of increased natural noise cancellation, because you're not actually letting quite as much sound into your ear in comparison to this style of earphone. Before we talk about working out in them, let's answer the big question on most people's minds: how effective is the active noise cancelling on the Galaxy Buds 3s? So I actually made a short reel not too long ago with genuine first impressions of the Galaxy Buds 3s. I unboxed them there and then on camera and gave them a try, and I was genuinely blown away by the active noise cancelling. They were super strong, even in comparison to my much more expensive MW08s, which I've always been a really big fan of. The ANC in general, seriously strong. You can definitely feel it working. What's interesting is that it seems there's a sort of multi-stage thing going on here. You put them in and initially it feels fairly standard, then you get this distinct feeling of the noise cancelling intensifying, first in one ear, then the other, until everything just goes pretty much silent. It's actually quite remarkable considering these are a very sensibly priced pair of earbuds. To test it in a natural environment, I actually took these down to my local cafe on a weekend, and whilst they didn't eliminate every single murmur and clatter, they did a fantastic job of blocking out all of that general chit chat in my surroundings. Once I had some music playing as well, I was completely immersed. So for the ANC in 2025, the Galaxy Buds 3s are definitely still holding their own, and definitely a fantastic option if you want a pair of earbuds with really good ANC. So the ANC is a big tick in the box for the Galaxy Buds 3s, but what about the sound? Another huge question on everyone's mind is, how good is the audio quality with the Galaxy Buds 3s? Well, honestly, they actually sound really good. I was honestly expecting that very stereotypical consumer bass boosted sound that all the companies seem to go for. Sony in particular and Bose are the sort of ones I've got my eye on here. These did have that, but not quite to the same extent. There's actually a real crispness to the sound here. It's not the same super sharp, almost analytical sound I get with my MW08, which have a more neutral tuning, but the Galaxy Buds 3s offer this really enjoyable, warm, well-balanced sound that I found myself quite happy with in general. And here's the cool thing, you can actually tweak the sound even further when connected to my S25 Ultra, which by the way is running One UI 7. It's fantastic. You get a bunch of extra controls. There are some quick settings in the connected device menu, but if you jump into the wearable app and head over to the Bud 3 settings, you can unlock so much more. This is where you can toggle the ANC and the ambient sound modes, but also dive into the sound quality and effects section. Here you'll get the 360 audio feature, which if I'm honest, it does feel like a bit of a gimmick. I don't really appreciate it for music. It's probably better for watching movies, I guess. Not really my cup of tea, if I'm honest, and I don't personally see the use case. Anyway, if you scroll past the equalizer settings, you'll get the ultra high quality audio setting. Now, this is not night and day difference, but if you turn this on, it's definitely noticeable and a nice little extra to have with these earphones. It means that you can really push your favorite music streaming apps to their absolute limits and get the very best sound you can possibly get from your streams. So overall, I'm actually really impressed with the sound quality for the Galaxy Buds 3s. They are definitely not top tier, in my opinion. If sound quality is something that you really value, I definitely consider paying a little bit more money. But if you want a good all-rounder, the Galaxy Buds 3s are definitely a good option. Do they sound better than my 3-year-old washing machine surviving MW08? Definitely not. I'd still rather these in terms of sound. I just love the sharp, crisp sound that I get with my MW08. It's just a lot more natural and just sounds higher quality overall. But again, I'd definitely say that the Galaxy Buds 3 still offer a really good sound experience for music and movies, and dare I say, they're probably even a little bit better on the bass than my MW08s. And we do have to remember when I'm making these comparisons, there is almost a $200 price difference between these earbuds, so any win for the Galaxy Buds 3s is a big plus in my opinion, if that is what your budget is. Anyway, the Galaxy Buds 3s have a bunch of other cool features which are completely pointless if you can't get them to stay in your ears. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is a big one. Are the Galaxy Buds 3s comfortable and do they stay in your ears, especially when you're working out? So the Galaxy Buds 3s really shine when you're just chilling, sitting down, relaxing at home, in a cafe, even walking around. They feel pretty great in your ears, but the moment you start picking up the pace, especially if you're thinking about taking these for workouts, that's where things get a little bit dicey in my opinion. I find myself constantly fiddling with them, trying to make sure they don't fall out of my ears. Maybe it's because they're so light, maybe it's because I'm just not used to this style of earphone, but they don't feel secure in my ear. I don't have the confidence that they're going to stay in for a whole run. I have to constantly keep fiddling with them, which obviously we all do with our earbuds, but I do it noticeably less with my MW08 and any rubber tip earphone in comparison to the Galaxy Buds 3s. And then on top of this, to make matters worse, if there's even a little bit of wind, I get this really loud whooshing sound going around the earphone and straight into my ears. Again, earlier I was arguing against this sort of earphone in comparison to rubber tips. With rubber tips, you get this sort of seal around your ear that kind of stops this naturally. I found the wind noise super distracting and honestly pretty unpleasant. This not only messes with the overall sound quality, but also kind of defeats the purpose of the active noise cancelling, which, as we know, is a major strength of these earbuds. When that wind noise does hit your ear, it's a loud, piercing sound, which just seems to bypass any ANC that the Galaxy Buds 3s is producing. It's not all the time. It's obviously going to depend on the weather. I have had some very pleasant runs with the Galaxy Buds 3, so I'm not going to say that you cannot run in these, but I myself would prefer rubber tip earphones if I'm going to be running in them. Moving on, aside from them just being comfortable, in general, can you work out in them? And the answer is yes, you can definitely work out in the Galaxy Buds 3s. They handle being submerged for up to 30 minutes in water up to a meter deep, and they're also dust resistant, so sweaty workouts and light rain will be no problem. And based on my experience with tons of truly wireless earbuds, I bet they'd even hold up in heavy rain too. For example, again, my current daily drivers, the MW08s, I believe weren't even waterproof at all, but they've survived several cycles in the washing machine and been out on many runs in heavy rain, and they're absolutely fine. Workouts aside, what about the quieter moments? Can you sleep in the Galaxy Buds 3s. If you need to wind down and get a little bit of shut-eye, the ANC is definitely a big plus here. The fit is generally fine when you're lying on your back, but because they're so light, you barely notice they're there. However, if you're a side sleeper like me, the slightly sharper design of the Galaxy Buds 3s compress into your ear a little bit, causing some discomfort. That being said, it's actually probably better than my much flatter MW08s in fairness, but it's something to be aware of. So in a pinch, whilst it's not generally recommended to sleep with ANC on anyway, you could definitely get away with sleeping with the Galaxy Buds 3s if you wanted to. All these features are super cool, but also super useless if the battery is no good. So how long do the Galaxy Buds 3s last, and how often are you going to need to charge them? In my testing, I've confidently got around 5 to 6 hours of playtime with ANC enabled and closer to 7 to 8 hours with it turned off. The charging case provides an additional 2 full charges, bringing the total listening time to around 20 to 24 hours with ANC and potentially over 30 hours without it. These figures are still fairly respectable in 2025. The case charges via USB-C and also supports wireless charging. This is a very convenient feature. Charging speeds are decent, offering around an hour of playback time for just a quick 15-minute charge. At least that's what Samsung states. Anyway, so this is an interesting one. I found that when plugging these in a pinch, again, comparing to my MW08, they don't seem to be charging quite as fast, and I don't seem to get quite as much usage out of them in comparison to my much older MW08s. But by other earphone standards, I still think they're holding their own in 2025. Beyond the core features, battery life, working out, yada yada yada, what else do the Galaxy Buds 3s bring to the table in 2025? They connect via Bluetooth 5.3, offering a very stable and reliable connection. I have to say that I've had 0 connection drops with the Galaxy Buds 3s in the whole time during testing. This is a huge plus and something that I kind of expect from earbuds these days, but we still do have issues with these sort of lower end models. In addition to this, they support multi-point pairing, allowing you to connect to 2 devices simultaneously and seamlessly switch between them, which is incredibly useful. Codec support includes SBC and AAC. Within the Samsung ecosystem, you get seamless pairing and easy switching between your Galaxy devices. The touch controls on earbuds are customizable through the wearable app, allowing you to set your preferred actions for taps and holds. Importantly, they also feature the Find My Earbuds sections. This is something that AirPods have had for ages, and I'm really glad to see on the Galaxy Buds 3s. It's a really handy little feature, and it sort of cohesively brings the Galaxy Buds 3s into the Samsung ecosystem. I'm really enjoying it with One UI 7 on my S25 Ultra. Everything's so easy to use and so easy to find. But back to those touch controls a second. So yes, we've got touch controls. Yes, they are customizable in the app, which is a really nice feature, but are they useful? I don't think so. If I'm honest, I don't really like them. I've really struggled to get my head around them, especially when running. They're so inconvenient because I'm finding myself pushing the earphones into my ears to make sure that they're secure. Every time I do that, I seem to be hitting a random button and I'm not even sure what I'm hitting. The music stops. Sometimes the volume goes up. Sometimes it skips a track. It's actually really annoying. When you're sat still in a cafe or just knocking around home, it's great. A little slide up, for example, will turn the volume up nice and gently and you get a nice bit of haptic feedback in your ear, or probably not the right word. You get a nice sound effect in your ear to let you know that the volume has gone up. But yeah, in general, not my favorite earphone controls, if I'm being completely honest. I think I prefer physical buttons or even no controls at all. So although I don't really like comparing to Apple in every single Samsung video I do, we kind of have to because Apple is the arch enemy of Samsung. And with the AirPods, people have actually been using them over the past few years for their YouTube channels, TikTok and whatever, because the microphone quality is actually not too bad. So what is the microphone quality like on the Galaxy Buds 3s? Can you make calls on them? And are they good for recording? So let's answer just that. So currently I've got my Galaxy Buds 3s connected to my new S25 Ultra. I've made sure my S25 Ultra is definitely using the Galaxy Buds 3's microphone. And as you can see, it's doing a pretty good job. I wouldn't be using it for studio style environments anytime soon, but it's certainly enough to get by in my opinion. And overall, I think I'm actually quite impressed with the Galaxy Buds 3s. In quiet environments, call quality is generally good, voices come through nice and clear, and the microphone does a decent job of picking up your voice. However, in noisier environments, the microphone struggles a little bit to isolate your voice from background noises. Wind noise is also definitely an issue during calls outdoors. Whilst they're perfectly usable for calls, they're not the absolute best in class for microphone performance, especially in challenging conditions. However, this is where One UI 7 comes in, and also I guess the S25 Ultra. The S25 Ultra comes with advanced noise cancellation in calls, as well as for recording things like streams or TikTok videos, whatever you want to do with them. So with these new AI features, you can actually make the Galaxy Buds 3s sound pretty damn good. So here we are in 2025 with the Galaxy Buds 4s looming around the corner. Are the Galaxy Buds 3s worth your hard-earned cash? Now, for their current price, which has likely dropped since their release, they still offer a compelling package. The active noise cancellation remains excellent and the sound quality is genuinely enjoyable for everyday listening. They boast a fairly comfortable design for general use and decent battery life with convenient charging options. The integration with the Samsung ecosystem this year has also been absolutely brilliant. You're going to get a lot of use case out of these earbuds if you have a newer S25 Ultra or One UI 7 running on your phone. However, the fit for some of the more active users out there is going to be problematic for some. The wind noise issue is a definite drawback for runners and outdoor enthusiasts. The microphone performance isn't the strongest, but again, if you do have a One UI 7 enabled phone, you might be able to make use of Samsung's new AI features to help sort that out. So whether or not you should wait for the Galaxy Buds 4s or buy the Galaxy Buds 3s now is really going to depend on how much of a rush you're in, and it's also going to be a little bit of a gamble. Interestingly, if we look back through all of the designs of the recent Galaxy Buds over the past few years, they're all completely different and seem to change pretty drastically. So have Samsung finally settled on a model that they're now going to build on and improve upon, or are we going to see something completely different within the next 6 months? That is the big question. So in my opinion, if you've got the Galaxy Buds 3s free with say an S25 Ultra or any other device, I think that's a huge win. I think they're a great pair of earphones, especially to get free. I also think if you're on a budget, you can't go wrong with these. I think if you buy these, and yes, there are some improvements with the Galaxy Buds 4s in the near future, I don't think you're actually going to be too upset. If you do have a bit of cash waiting around and you're not feeling particularly impatient, I would wait for the Galaxy Buds 4s just to see what they offer, because you'll more than likely get some really good offers on the Galaxy Buds 3s when the next generation of folds come out and the next generation of the Galaxy Buds comes out. To reiterate though, the big plus for the Galaxy Buds 3s is the active noise cancelling for me from testing. I don't think enough people have actually shouted about this. I think they're really good in comparison to even more premium earphones. So that brings me on to the big question. Are the Galaxy Buds 3s going to replace my MW08s, which are 3 to 4 years old now? They've been through the washing machine multiple times, survived torrential rain and other scenarios that have probably pushed them to their limits. I'm going to say no, if I'm being honest. I think that the Galaxy Buds 3s have got a way to go. I might feel differently with the Galaxy Buds 3 Pros. However, the Galaxy Buds 3s just are way off in terms of design and that premium luxury feel that the MW08s give me. Also much prefer the much more natural sound of my MW08. So I really do think I'm going to run these to the ground until the day they eventually break on me. So ultimately, the decision is yours. It really does come down to what your needs and current priorities are. If you did want to check out my daily drivers, I did do a review of these 3 or 4 years ago. I'll put a link to that at the end screen now, or you can click in the top left or right corner now to see the new S25 Ultra and check out some of those cool One UI 7 features. For now though, I've been Alex. This has been Take It Easy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.